Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're listening to the Broadway Hat Podcast with your host, Kyle Hall, the #1 podcast for all things Rangers hockey.
Welcome back to the Broadway Hat Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hall, and we are recording right after a great New York Rangers win at MSG tonight against the Florida Panthers. A real complete game. Really one of the best games Rangers have played in a long time. I guess Columbus was a good game, but against a good team. The Panthers are a very solid team, but the Rangers get the 6-2 win at home, and Igor Shesterkin comes oh so close to finally getting that goal. He just misses the net tonight, but great games from Panarin had, would have 3 assists in the game. Zibanejad had 2 goals and an assist. Lafreniere played one of his best games in a very long time, finally getting scoring a goal after I think it was like a 15-game streak. That might be wrong, but it was a very long streak, goalless streak for him. He gets his 6th of the year. Hedl picks up a goal and assist. Kakko 2 assists. Just the kid line back together. I like the lines tonight. The Trocheck, Goodrow, and Vesey line get a goal there. Another dirty goal. Jimmy Vesey getting his 8th goal of the year. The top line of Panarin, Kreider, and Zibanejad played well together. I like the lines tonight. I thought they were good. I really like that Vesey, Goodrow, Trocheck line, because not only are they very good defensively, but they are just a downhill line. They keep the puck in the zone. They're a physical line. I like that a lot. The kid line, obviously, always love them. And the top line is your top firepower. And if they can do what they did tonight and have constant pressure in the offensive zone, produce goals, maybe Gerard Gallant has found something now in these lines. But, again, you got to stick with them for more than a game or two to see if they'll actually work, which, it seems as though it's the first time the Rangers lose a game, they scrap the lines and go somewhere else. So we'll see how long these lines stay after a very good win against the Panthers, coming off of a rough loss against the Bruins where they got completely outplayed at home last Thursday night, but the Rangers had a couple days to regroup. I was not at the open practice, but it looked like the open practice was awesome. I heard from a lot of fans and saw a lot of posting on there. Talked to a few people who were there, and they said it was great. Seems like there was a VIP meet and greet afterwards with a lot of Rangers, and hopefully the Rangers do that again, because it seems like that was a huge hit with fans. I mean, what other fan base really can sell out basically a venue on a Saturday morning for a practice? MSG, not a practice facility, Madison Square Garden, sold out for a practice. Just shows you how crazy and awesome Ranger fans are. Looked like a great event. And then the alumni event that happened on Sunday with the Rangers and Islanders playing. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd annual time of raising money there for Northwell Health. But always cool to see the alumni back. There's some cool clips from the game, and a couple of the players like Adam Graves come back, Ron Duguay, former guest of the show, playing in the game. So it's always great to see some alumni back out there on the ice, wearing the Rangers colors again. And, obviously, Rangers-Islanders rivalry is so great, but it's very cool to see. They did that for charity, so, hopefully they continue to do that as well. So it was a fun weekend for Ranger fans who were able to get out there and see any of those events. But with the trade deadline approaching and the All-Star game just a week away, the Rangers play in Toronto on Wednesday, and then they play home against Vegas, and then it's the All-Star break. As crazy as that might seem, it seems like it went very quickly post-holiday break there. But 2 games left before the break. Yeah, last week, Igor Shesterkin was named to the All-Star team. The fan vote, Panarin and Fox were named, so Rangers are sending 3 players to the All-Star game, which is tied for the most. In the NHL, I believe it's the Leafs and Avs who also are sending 3 different players. No, I'm sorry. It's Edmonton and the Avs who are also sending 3 different players to the game. So pretty cool to see the Rangers get 3 guys in there. Just shows you, obviously, a talentless team. But, I mean, it doesn't matter how many All-Stars you have. It matters at the end of the year. But still, very cool to see those guys get recognized. But come All-Star game, there's always trade rumors around. And some of the latest trade rumors around the Rangers, there's some interesting ones. So, obviously, the rumor that's been around for almost 2 years now is Patrick Kane coming to the Rangers, and I feel as though hopefully we'll get some clarity on that situation soon. There was apparently a meeting between Kane and the Blackhawks executives after New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, whatever it was, of where they want to go. The Blackhawks obviously are in full rebuild, so it's going to be Kane's decision, and I don't, who knows what was said, but he has a no movement clause in his contract, so he's going to determine exactly where he wants to go, and the Blackhawks will have to do that because that's where he has all the cards right now. So we'll see. I don't know what the chances are of him coming to New York. I would say, I hope, or I would think they're one of the front runners for it, but a team like Boston, who looks pretty unbeatable right now, if they come along and say, hey, we want him, and Kane's agent knows that and puts that in front of him, he might go to Boston with that's a team I think right now has a better shot at winning a Stanley Cup than the New York Rangers personally. That defense, if they can get another more firepower there in offense, that's going to be a tough team to knock out in 7 games in a playoff series. So we'll see about Patrick Kane. But if Kane doesn't work out, there's another Western Conference guy who might be Timo Meier, the Sharks forward, who's having a monster season this year. Has 27 goals already this year. He's on pace to break his career high, which was 35 last year. He'll be available. Now, he has some interesting caveats to him. So he's 26 years old. He's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the year. But he's due a large raise. So he'll be getting around $10 million next year, which with the Rangers' current salary cap restrictions, not going to work. It's just not, unless they move someone on the current roster with a big contract, it's just not going to work with the guys that they re-signed. So he's going to cost a pretty penny. He's going to cost a first-round pick, top prospect, probably another young player, as in like a Kravtsov, maybe an Hoffman, and a first-round pick, which that's a lot to give up for a guy who, for the Rangers, is going to be a rental guy. Now, Chris Drury can turn around and trade him in the offseason, trade his rights to someone, but you're not going to get the same value back at all as you were at the deadline. So, does he make sense for the Rangers? No, I would say the guy who makes more sense would be Patrick Kane, based off of, even though he's a UFA, I think there's a better shot at him returning to the Rangers on a cheaper contract or less of a give up on the actual trade itself. But, so, Myers out there, it's funny because last year Thomas Hertl was the guy who was on the market supposedly from the Sharks. Rangers were interested in him. Hertl ends up signing an extension in San Jose. So, new year, another San Jose Shark forward on the market as San Jose continues to struggle out there under the Rangers' former boss, David Quinn. Another forward to watch out for, Nick Ritchie, the former Boston Bruin, who actually almost signed with the Rangers when he was a free agent coming out of Boston before last season, and it was between the Maple Leafs and the Rangers, and he ended up choosing Toronto over New York. Didn't work out in Toronto after about half the season of being a healthy scratch in and out of the lineup. Actually, I think he got sent down to the American Hockey League for a little bit. They shipped him out to Arizona. Played well in Arizona last year towards the end of the year. He's having a good season this year. Good season for him. But he's having a bounce-back year this year. And not for anything, if the Rangers bring him in, he's a pending UFA, so he's should come at a low cost, I would think. Would be a solid addition to the fourth line. Sammy Blais, the struggles have been there. Gallant came out and acknowledged it finally, that he is struggling. He's been a healthy scratch. How much longer are they going to go with him? They got Brzezinski through waivers, which was I thought was a very risky play. I thought he might get picked up, but Brzezinski goes through waivers. Julien Gauthier is now back in the lineup, so that's great to see him back. So Blais is obviously the odd man out now. But if you bring in Ritchie, I think that'd be a great addition. Sandpaper guy, has some finish to him. Could play on that fourth line. I don't know if that means Jake Leschyshyn sits. I don't know. Does Julien Gauthier sit? Does Barclay Goodrow somehow slide down to a fourth line centerman role? So we'll see. We'll see where the Rangers go there, what decisions they make, because Kravtsov's obviously now in the fourth line because of these new lines. So unless he gets dealt in another deal somewhere else, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But the Rangers are definitely obviously they'll be looking for some kind of a Tyler Mott type of a player at the deadline that could help them on that fourth line, because I think they'll definitely need some help on that down there somewhere on the wing, most likely, because I think center is pretty much locked up. I think they're okay there. The next guy, Logan Stanley, a big defenseman, 6'7" defenseman, plays for Winnipeg. Now, I heard this from a guy who is close to Winnipeg, talking about some scouts that have been at some games early in the year. Apparently, the Rangers were sniffing around Stanley a little bit. He seems like he's the odd guy out in Winnipeg. He's been out of the lineup all year with injuries. Winnipeg's having a very good season. They have a good decor up there. And this is a guy who's a former first-round pick, and that hasn't really reached that where he they thought he would be, his potential where he should be. Plays the left side, which is where the Rangers would want someone. And listen, we've seen Zach Jones in the lineup, out of the lineup, sent to Hartford. Hyatt got his chance, now back on the bench. Now Ben Harper's getting his chance. And listen, Harper's played well. I just think that you can get a 24-year-old RFA who's 6'7", has a size. Rangers obviously won. Gallant has said they want a guy with size on that pairing, which is why Jones didn't really work out there. And first-round pedigree, why not take the chance on him? I don't know what he'll cost. I saw a rumor that Sammy Blais could be a fit in Winnipeg, so maybe that could be a nice trade, a guy who's out of the lineup one place for another guy, and kind of help both teams out. Who knows? But so keep an eye on Logan Stanley possibly, and then another defenseman, Vladislav Gavrikov, who the Rangers just saw last week in Columbus. He's kind of taking over the number one defenseman role there with Zach Werenski out, and he's playing a team-high 22 minutes a game. Another big defenseman, 6'7", 220, really hits like a truck. He's 27 years old as well, pending UFA, but he's going to come at a little bit of a higher cost. Apparently, Columbus believes, and some people I saw, Arthur Staple was the one who reported this one. They believe that Columbus could get a first-round pick value out of him. So Columbus should be motivated to move him at the deadline, but we'll see. And the guy who apparently the Rangers checked in on back in December, Arthur had that, so we'll see. We'll see who they get here, but obviously the Rangers have some holes they have to fix. Top six, some type of scorer, possible bottom six, really fourth line guy who can come in, play physical, kill some penalties, score some goals for you. Give them a little bit of lift there that Sammy Blais can't do right now, and then some help there in the third pairing as well on the defensive side, because obviously Lieber Hayek's gotten his chance, is gone. Zach Jones has been back in Hartford for a couple months now. But even though Ben Harper's played well, I think they do look for an upgrade there going forward. But we do have a great guest this week. We're joined by former Ranger Mike Vernace, who tells some great hockey stories. It was awesome to hear his hockey journey, playing for the Rangers, playing in Tampa, playing for Colorado. Very cool stories, and it was great to get to sit down with him and talk about all that. But before we send our interview with Mike, I do want to tell you about our sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook. 4 NFL teams, that's it. 2 conference championship games, and only a few shots to win big on the playoffs with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Counting down to Super Bowl 57, new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. If you're not a new customer, you can feel conference championship thrills with stepped-up same-game parlays. Take your shot, an even bigger payout, and boost your winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. These should be some great games. Mahomes is banged up, but him and Burrow, again, matching off with each other. That should be great. Niners versus Eagles. They're clearly the two best teams in the Eastern and the in the America. They're clearly the two best teams in the NFC, so should be some great matchups there. But go and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Broadway. And new customers, when they bet $5 on conference championship games, can get $200 in free bets instantly only at DraftKings Sportsbook when you use the code Broadway. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Please see show notes for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 647-369. All right, we are now joined by former New York Ranger Mike Vernace. Thanks so much for joining us. But I know you're Italian, so I need the actual true saying of the name.
It's Vernace.
There we go. I wasn't
but
doing
Vernace is fine too. It's good. It's totally fine. It's all good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were joking around. I watched a lot of YouTube clips on you, and a lot of different announcers have said the name differently. And it always gets me whenever I have a guy on that. It seems there's no consensus in the announcers. When they put it in the program, there's little differences there. But thank you so much for saying that in the true version of the name.
Yeah, I got to throw some love to my Italian heritage for sure.
Yeah. Talk about heritage and growing up. You grew up in Toronto. What was your team growing up? Who was your favorite player?
Oh, my favorite team growing up was obviously the Leafs. just an absolute diehard Leaf fan as a kid, like just bleed blue and white. Like that was me. My dad and my uncles and my grandfather too, like they came from Italy. And when they got here, landed in Toronto, and they found themselves watching, obviously, the local team here, and they're the biggest squad. So they became fans. And I just grew up cheering for the Leafs. My favorite player, a couple of favorite players growing up, obviously Doug Gilmour, Wendell Clark, those guys, in my heyday, they were the best players, but they were, heart and soul guys. And they're guys who I looked up to in terms of like, how much effort and stuff they gave on the ice, which became kind of something that I wanted to incorporate in my game too, is a lot of effort. So, that was good. So that for sure got me started in the right direction of following players who like to give a lot of effort.
That seems like every time I have a guy on from Toronto in your age area, those are the two guys. Like there could have been anyone else on the team. Those are the two guys that everyone says just because of their compete level and how good they were.
Yeah. As I got older, just before I started playing in the OHL too, we had Matt Sundin, who was, he came in mid 90s and he was also a monster. Like he was awesome. Great player, very respected in this community too. Really, really solid player. I actually was fortunate enough to play against him in his last year as well. So, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But I also, a couple of my other players that I really, really like, because I was just a hockey, nerd as a kid. I always loved Joe Sakic and Steve Yzerman, and I ended up playing for or with both of them, which is kind of cool too. So, yeah, just the glory days of being a kid and just cheering for your team.
You got drafted in the OHL to Brampton. Was that the first moment that you kind of thought maybe I can take this thing to the next level?
If I'm being completely honest, there was never really a time where I didn't think I would play in the NHL. And like, if we go back, to when I was playing minor hockey, like I very seldomly played at the top level. I started in A hockey for 1 year, and then I went to AA, and I played, for 5 seasons at AA, and, I was always the best player. But I always liked competing with my friends, and the teams at AAA, they kind of wanted me to come up, but my dad's like, hey, you're playing a lot here. You're playing with your buddies. You guys are getting better every year. It's fine if you don't go. And I said, yeah, like I wanted to play. It didn't really matter. I wanted to play and I wanted to win. I wanted to win with my friends, which was good. And I was developing, that was kind of like the dawn of skill instruction. So, guys would come out to our practices and stuff. So we were getting extra. And then when I did make the move up in my OHL draft year to the AAA, I felt confident because, I was always the guy on my other teams, and I moved up to that AAA team and I was still the guy. So I knew how to handle that pressure, which was good for me. And, I thank my dad actually a lot for that. He made good decisions. He made decisions that were in my best interests and weren't necessarily about his ego. And that's what I think is really, really important. And I think that's, being in that industry now, it's very, very evident when you see those things happen.
And then, so your NHL draft year, you ended up playing the start of the year in the OJHL, and then you moved to the OHL for the playoffs. I guess, was a 9th round pick in the OHL. That training camp, but how tough was that training camp just trying to prove yourself?
In the OHL or NHL?
The OHL.
In the OHL? Yeah, like the first year I was there, like, hey, this is all pretty new. I was there, enjoyed the experience, but I learned a lot of, good stuff, and I learned where I needed to work. And, going back to what we were talking about like a little bit before, I really knew that I had to be an effort player too. So for me, I like to learn. And so once I got that information about what I need to work on, I just went to work on it. And it was just like a dog on a bone, just working meticulously at what my strengths were and improving my weaknesses essentially. And I knew from when I was that age that there was going to be nobody who was going to outwork me. That would be how I would have to do what I needed to do, because all these players growing up, they had played at the top levels. They were used to playing against top players. And I was just this new kid on the block, looking to make his way in. And that's kind of how I just carried on throughout the rest of my career. I always just felt like, I think athletes, they have this interesting dynamic that they play in their own minds where, when you're trying to achieve something, and you're, every athlete that plays in the NHL or even the American League, or, to be honest with you, any athlete that's getting paid to play, you're at a different level, no matter whether it's, professional or even semi-professional. If someone's paying you to play, you're probably pretty good. And so we have this almost skewed rating scale where we see each other, we assess each other amongst ourselves, all the time. So, the effort I knew was going to be some way that was going to kind of help me stand apart from the rest. And I think that's what really helped me.
And yeah, you had a good year that year. You ended up getting drafted in the 7th round of the 2004 draft by the Sharks. Talk me through that draft day experience leading up to that. Did you know you were going to be drafted? Like, how did it all play out?
Well, it's funny. So that season I started in the OJHL, and I played like 15 games or something. And then I got injured in November. And so I essentially missed from November to February. And right as I got injured, Brampton wanted to call me up to the OHL, but I couldn't play until November. So I ended up getting in the final 2 regular season games. And then, I didn't play the first playoff game, and we lost. And one of our older guys got injured, and they put me in, and I did well. And we, we won that game. And so they kept me in the lineup, and we ended up upsetting Ottawa, who was a good team at the time. We finished 7th, they finished 2nd. So I found some success. And then the next series we played St. Mike's, who was a big favorite as well. And we did okay. I mean, we lost in 5 games. The games were good, solid games. I personally had done well. So, going into that offseason, I was honestly just focused on my rookie year in the OHL, the year upcoming. So by that time, an agent had connected with me, and I Anton Thun and Paul Cabzano. So they had said, okay, hey, we want to represent you. I said, yeah, sure. That sounds great. And so the weekend of the draft, I wasn't really thinking that I was going to draft it. I'm like, I only played a couple games and just, 11 playoff games. So I didn't really have any expectation, to be honest with you. And he just said, if we call you at all this weekend, it means you got drafted. So I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to enjoy my weekend. I'm going to do what I normally do, train, whatever. So it was actually like 10:30 in the morning. No, 9:30. I was still sleeping. Anyways, I was still sleeping, and I heard the phone ring. I was kind of watching TV maybe or something. And, I heard my dad. He's like, yeah, 1 second. So my dad came into my room. He's like, hey, it's your agent. And immediately I was like, oh. So I answered the phone. He's like, hey, Mike, just want to let you know you're drafted by San Jose Sharks, 7th round. Congratulations. And I was like, thank you. And he's like, hey, gotta go. I was like, all right, see you later. So, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I could hear, so I hang up the phone. I could hear my dad outside. He went and like, he was like fist pumping, and he went to go hug my mom, which was a great moment, which was awesome. And so, I kind of just got out of bed, went outside, and he like gave me a big hug. He was like, congrats. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I went inside, I had a little something to eat, and I was like, I got dressed, and I was like, okay, I went back outside. It was probably like 10 minutes. By that time, 5 of my neighbors were over. It just started to become like this huge, thing. My cousins were starting to come over. I was like, what is happening? Right. Like with everybody. And so about 30 minutes after, I was like, hey, Dad, I'm going to the gym. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, I'm going to train. Like, I got to work, like this is what I got to do. And he says, okay, no problem. So I went to the gym for like 2 hours, and I was just, I had a great workout because I was just so ecstatic, right? I was just so pumped up. By the time I got back, it was a full-on block party at my house, which is great. Like, our house was always HQ growing up, so everyone always congregated there. But it was just everybody, and it just became a huge all-day, block party, which is amazing. All my friends, cousins, family, whatever was there. And yeah, that was kind of that story.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Your first OHL season, I mean, all that hard work paid off. You finished the first team all rookie team that year, 50 points. I guess when you came in, not that it was easy, but like, your first year, did you expect more of a hiccups, or, all that hard work just paid off and you just kind of clicked for you?
Like, I got to be honest, I was just always focused on just getting better and having fun. Like, all of the external stuff, I think what allowed me to play for as long as I did, or do well in that moment, was I just didn't really pay attention to it, like the good, the bad, or whatever. It was just like, I was always just kind of focused on getting better at hockey. And that's all I wanted to do. I loved playing. I actually, now that I'm, finished, what I realize is that I love the developmental aspect. I love, the day-to-day grind and trying to be better than yourself, day to day. So, at that time, I was just focused on like, okay, I want to practice well, I want to have good habits, and I just want to play. I want to go out there, have fun, compete hard. Yeah, like, it was just, I didn't have any expectation for how the season would go for me or for the team. I just said, I'm just going to work hard, and, whatever happens is going to happen, but I'm just going to control what I can control.
Your second year, you're even better. You got very second year. You led the OHL in assists for defenseman, 62. You were a third team All-Star overall in the OHL. You set franchise records in most points as a defenseman all time, most assists, most points in a season as a defenseman. So I mean, hell of a run up there.
Yeah, that was a good season. Like, we had a really strong team. I remember Wojtek, he started the year in the NHL that year, and then he came back after his 10 games. And then we had Lou Chiquino, who also started the year in pro, and then he ended up coming back. And, once we got those two guys back, we were rolling. And I think our power play that year was like 33% for the year. It was something insane. And like, we were second in the league because London was just so good. Both years, both my years, London was just outrageous. Like, the first year was the best team probably in maybe hockey history, but I mean, other than the Team Canada team that they all played on anyways, but yeah. I think they had like 31 games in a row or 36 games in a row to start the year, undefeated. I know Crosby that same year had like 37 games undefeated without going into playoffs, but it was just remarkable. It was like really, really good. They were just really good. And that second year, obviously their power play was still really good. They had a lot of good players, which typically London does. So, but yeah, it was a great season. I was definitely fortunate enough to get opportunity from my coaches in Brampton, Stan Butler and Kelly Harper. They believed in me, and they gave me opportunity, and they gave me opportunity to find my way, through success and failure. And I think what was good about them is that they cared, and they wanted to help. They wanted to help develop. I know Stan did a lot of work for me, to get drafted. He put together a lot of film, and he really connected with, those NHL teams that had questions. And, same with Kelly Harper. He's working with Detroit now, scouting, but he, worked with me kind of day to day, just how to, do little things to get better that I wasn't used to at minor hockey, because I'd only played 2 years of AAA with like, in amongst those top end players. So for me, it was still all really new.
And then, so from that off season, you finish up your year there, and you get traded. San Jose trades you to Colorado. Was that a shock?
No, actually, it was to be honest, San Jose, they just had a lot of defensemen under contract, and they pretty much told my agent, say, hey, we want to sign you, but you're going to start in the East Coast, and we have a lot of guys that are still ahead of you because we have a lot, just the way it worked out. And they said, do you want to look for a trade instead? And so Colorado was there watching Wojtek, pretty much every other weekend. And so they got to see me a lot. And so they said, yeah, we want to trade for him. And so that's kind of how it worked out.
And then did you ever go to camp with San Jose?
Yeah, twice, 2 years.
So Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau, and they had some big names in it, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, it was good. Great. Yeah, they had Scott Hannon was there, who I ended up playing with later in Colorado. Yeah, it was pretty cool to see when I was 18 years old, the level at which these players were preparing and how good they were, when you get on the ice against them and you play, not just like in summer, training sessions. It's like now it's for keeps. Like these guys are going hard. How good are they? And I think that that's something that really helped me going back to junior both those years. This is how hard these guys compete on a day-to-day basis. Now you got to go and do that if you want to get there.
And you get to Colorado, and like you said, one of your idols is there in the locker room waiting for you in training camp, Joe Sakic. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, Joe is a fantastic person, human being, and just a great overall like role model, just because he just worked so tirelessly all the time. And he was really humble and just a great person. Like, I'm really happy that, he's having a lot of success in Colorado now with his team, because he's a good guy, really good. And he's very, very obviously intelligent, and just, I mean, all-time player, but all-time person too.
Did you guys ever get matched up in practice at all? I
mean, in like those early years, like when I was just a kid, I was just probably played against him. But the years that I got called up to play, he actually, it was his last year, and he was rehabbing from injury, and he was trying to come back, so he's practicing, but he actually didn't play in any games. So, but it was just nice to be around him in those 3 years, at training camp, and just kind of the standard that he set for the whole organization.
And your first year you played in Arizona and Albany, and I think you started in Arizona, right? And then went to Albany?
Yep.
They did you dirty there. You start off in Arizona in the fall, and then they send you the winter to Albany. I'm like, I went to school in Albany. I know how rough those winters are. It's gray. It is cold. They did you bad on that one.
No, man. There's actually a funny story, about that. We, so getting called up to Albany, we got called up at the same time with my best friend now, Mike Angelidis. And so we ended up living together. And so he had a car there. And I remember it's like in January, beginning of January, it was a huge snowstorm. And we were like pushing it to get to the rink on time. And we got off the highway and took some back roads, and we got on this road that I don't know how, but the snow, like we couldn't drive the car through the snow essentially. And he's like, hey, I got to turn around and go back the other way. You run out. And we were like, I don't know, 2 miles from the rink. He's like, you run out and try to run there and get there and tell him like, this is what's happening. Cause like, we didn't want to call them, who had a phone. Right. But so we're like, okay. So I ran out, and it was like downhill through the snow. I remember I had to jump a fence, and I was like, what is going on right now? Where am I? Cause I was just coming from, being in Arizona. I mean, Prescott Valley, where I played, is up 9,000 feet above sea level. So it got colder, but still not nearly as cold and snowy as Albany was. So yeah, that was a interesting time. And obviously we had Tom Rowe as our coach, who was he was an old school guy, but also a great guy. But yeah, that was funny, trying to, like, the pressure was on to run and get there so that we can tell them, hey, we're not late, we're here.
And the Pepsi Center, I think it was Pepsi Center then. It's now MVP, wherever it is now. But it's like on top of a hill too. For anyone who's ever been there, it's on top of the hill, and it goes into Pearl Street, which is straight down.
Yeah,
all the bars and everything. So I can't imagine that you had the hill going from the state Capitol building down. So I can't even imagine navigating those roads
Oh
in
yeah.
snow. I mean, I wouldn't even try when I was living there.
Yeah, those are fun times. Like just having to like everything was really new. Even at pro hockey, American Hockey League, we're so nervous to like mess up at any point in time. We're like, hey, we just got to do whatever we need to do to get there, or to be in line with whatever coach was saying.
So your third year at Colorado, you make your NHL debut against Minnesota. Tell me about that call up and how that played out.
So the call up that day, I remember I was just at the rink, and I think it was like a Tuesday, Wednesday maybe or something. So I can't remember, but I was at the rink, and it was like 1:30 or 2:00. I was still at the rink. I just finished, training. I like to train a lot. So I just finished training, and then I went, did ice bath, maybe taped my sticks or something, just kind of whatever, just lounging at the rink, just doing whatever I had to do. Like I said, hockey nerd. So my assistant coach, Sylvain Lefebvre, he called me. He's like, hey, Vern, where are you? I said, I'm still at the rink. He goes, you're still at the rink? What are you doing here? I go, well, I was just doing this and this. He's like, okay, just come upstairs. I'm like, okay. So I went upstairs. I'm like, I don't know, maybe he's got to show me video or something. Like maybe I messed up somewhere. What did I do wrong? Because every time you get called in the coach's office, it's like, okay, is it good or bad? So I went up there, and when I walked in, they were like happy. They were smiling. So it kind of like took the pressure off, I just took a deep breath. They're like, Vern, sit down. I was like, hey, no problem. They're like, and Joe Sacco was the coach there. They're like, Vern, just want to congratulate you. You got your cookie. You're going up to the NHL. I said, what? And he goes, you got called up. And I go, for real? And he goes, yeah, congratulations. Like, oh my God, thank you so much. Shook both their hands. I probably like stood there. I was like looking up, looking right through them, and just thinking about like, really, is this really happening? And so, that was a cool moment. They were great guys, really supportive, both those coaches, Sylvain Lefebvre and Joe Sacco. I really enjoyed my time with them and playing for them. Obviously, they went on to coach at various levels in NHL, and they've had a lot of tremendous success as players and then as coaches, which is well deserved for them too. And so, which was great. I ended up getting that call up. I remember the call to my dad, and he was it was just such a good moment to make that phone call for sure.
And from the game, like what the nerves set in on the bench. When did the nerves hit you?
To be honest, like when I was first getting there to the rink that day for the morning skate, I still wasn't sure if I was playing because one of the guys was injured. He was kind of like a maybe. After that morning skate, it was determined he wasn't going to play. And then another defenseman went down. And so they ended up calling up my D partner, for that game as well. And I was just like, okay, am I playing? So, even though my defense partner called up and it looked like I was going to play, I was still like unsure, but so I got to the game, saw my jersey hanging there, and, that was a really good moment, kind of surreal. And then I just remember getting ready. That was kind of a blur, that time from when I walked in to going on the ice. And then, just getting ready to go out there, just those nerves, you get less and less nervous for a game the closer you get to going on the ice. And then the adrenaline takes over, and it's just like, hey, just do what you do, right? Just do what you've been training for. And that's it. I think all athletes will understand that too. You don't get more nervous as the game comes, you get less nervous. So once you get out there and you start skating around, Minnesota's a great, great rink. It was loud. It was packed for warm up. So it was just a really good atmosphere. So it's kind of hard not to get, pumped up and have that adrenaline flowing. So, that was good. I remember I didn't start the game, but the coach tapped me right away because they had started their fourth line, and Bugard, Dan Fritchie, and someone else were on the ice for them. And so basically, our defense coach, Jacques Cloutier, he basically threw us over the boards to get Johnny Lyles off the ice. He's like, change right away. And he threw me and my buddy Derek Pelche. Like I just it felt like he like hurled us over the boards, get out there and go play against these guys, which was amazing. So 4 seconds into the game, I jumped on for my first shift. We went down in their zone. They came back down in our zone. I think I like open ice hit. I ran into Bugard in the middle of the ice, and I was thinking to myself, like, what did you just do? Like, why did you do that for? So that was interesting. I played a few more shifts, and it was probably about the middle of the first period, and it was the first TV timeout. And I was just sitting there, and I was just looking straight ahead, and Ian Perrier, he just tapped me on the pants, like he was sitting right beside me. He's like, "Hey, good job, kid." And like that was kind of like your welcome to the NHL moment, like you're here, And I was like, "No," I took a breath. Okay, you're here. Just do what you got to do. So, which was good. It was fun.
That's awesome. Bugard's not the guy I would have gone after my first shift, but hey, let's set the tone, right?
Yeah, like that's kind of like the theme of my career. Like it didn't really matter who it was. I just tried to play the same way, which I know the game has changed quite a bit now, but if I go back to those early days and those even mid 2000s, it was tough, like tough hockey. Like the guys were tough and the game was different. And one thing I'll say is now that I'm, working in minor hockey or developing, youth athletes and working with some pro athletes, the game has changed. It's a lot more skill based, but I noticed that, back then we were always really aware of who was on the ice because, you just had to pay attention. If he was on the ice, you're like, okay, this guy wants to come and kill me. I need to be, on alert so that, he doesn't, kill me. Right. So you're just always paying attention. And where I think the game or that area has potentially regressed is just in that level of awareness. So I see it when you see like a lot of like open ice collisions, not even necessarily hits. You see collisions where players, because they move so fast, like the game moves so fast, they're so skilled, they're so effortless in their skating. There's just a lot more maybe collisions or high impact, collisions. So maybe a little bit less awareness, but the skill is just astronomically higher, which is great. Like I love watching skilled hockey. I was a skilled player, so I love watching that.
So I thought you were in Atlanta, and you played in Chicago for Don Granato. You played for Tony in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I mean, you knocked out two of the Granato brothers back to back there.
Fantastic people. Like really, really great people. Great coaches. Love playing for both of them. They were good. I think Tony coaches in college now, and Don coaches Buffalo.
Yeah,
which is great. I'm glad that he's there. He's got a great temperament with the players. He's usually calm and collected. So is Tony. Just when you play for coaches who, don't lose control, they always get more respect. And as a player, you respect that because you know that they know what they're talking about more so, right? And so you want to listen. And obviously they have a lot of experience, so you want to pay attention to what they're saying. So yeah, it was great. My time with them was great for sure.
Yeah, I mean the Dons really turned that team around. I mean Buffalo was sinking, and he came in and as an interim and kind of turned the whole culture around there. So
that's what I mean. Like it's just the culture. When you turn the culture around, you can get better results from the same players. That's all it is. When you can have the same player and insert a different coach or create a different culture, and you'll get better results for sure.
So you got loaned out to Hamilton that year too, and two guys I want to ask you about there. PK Subban just wrapped up his great career. Yeah. Maybe two Ranger fans may not have the biggest fan of him, but obviously a great player in his own right. And Max Pacioretty, who still just returned from injury, and he's lighting up again. The guy is a natural goal scorer.
Yeah. No, like unbelievable players. That team in Hamilton there, probably there. I would say that team was probably better than the one I played in Hartford, but there's a lot of good players in Hartford too. But that team in Hamilton, there was just so many players that played, in the NHL the following year. I think I looked at it, and the amount of players that either played in the NHL previously or that year or a year after, on that Hamilton team was like 26 players throughout the course of the year. It was something insane, right? We had just a really, really good team. And I got traded from one first place team to another better first place team. And so going in there, you're just like kind of hesitant. And so like I left Chicago, drove all night from 10 p.m. I got in at like 7 in the morning. My dad and my neighbor met me at the border at like 5 a.m. and they drove the last 2 hours so I could get some sleep. And they drove me right to the rink. I got to the rink at like 7:30 in the morning. I went straight into the office to meet the coaches, Guy Boucher and Dan Lacroix, and Martin Raymond. So I went right in there, and I had just driven all night. I was exhausted, and they just shook my hand and said, "Hey, nice to meet you. We're the coaches." And the first question Guy asked me was, so what do you like to do? And, hockey-wise, what do you like to do? And I said, well, in my former team, I was playing, in this role. He's like, I said, and he stopped me. He's like, no, I asked you, what do you like to do? And I said, well, to be honest, I like to play power play and quarterback the power play. And I like to be offensive and creative. I got a good skill. He's like, perfect. You're going to quarterback the power play. I was like, okay, sure. No problem. So that's something that I incorporated for sure. I learned a lot from Guy. He was probably one of my favorite coaches, very tactical, analytical, and just a good human being, and just knew how to get the most out of players. And he was the type of coach that you either loved him or you didn't like him, and you would go through the wall for him if you loved him. And I know a lot of guys did. And, but he was just very, very intelligent. I honestly think sometimes he was, too intelligent for many of the players that were around him, just because the level of detail that I understand, at the time I understood because I was, again, hockey nerd, but like now in that coaching aspect, the level of detail that he had to have and the way he came up with stuff was really high level. And I learned quite a bit from him. So going back to the original question, PK, I love PK. He was a great guy. And he's actually a great teammate, in my eyes, right? Like I'm one person, but I thought he was a great teammate. He had a ton of energy, a ton of enthusiasm. He had confidence. People are possibly thrown off by that. And even teammates would be, but it's just his enthusiasm for, life in general, which is great. I honestly learned a ton from him, and he was just a rookie. He was a young kid there. And I mean, I was only 25 at the time, but he was, or 24, but he was such a great kid. We became good buddies. We hung out a lot, and he was obviously a next level player. But yeah, he had a lot of enthusiasm for life in general, but he was good at hockey, and he just played with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of confidence. I personally loved it. So it was good. Patch, Max, he was really, really good player. Unbelievable release, great shot, could skate like the wind, could play physical. I'm not surprised in the least that he's had as much success as he has. And for as long as he's had, like, he was really, really well conditioned athlete as well. And so, good guys, just really, really fantastic next level players.
All right. So after that year, you get your rights traded back to San Jose, but you don't sign with them. Was there a thought to sign in San Jose? You end up with Tampa, with where Boucher went. Is that why you went there?
Yeah. So the trade to San Jose was just to facilitate room for the teams to have the appropriate amount of contracts. So you can only have the 50 contracts. So I think it was just so that they could have the right amount of contracts for, the deadline or whatever, going into the off season. So yeah, like, wasn't really going to sign with San Jose. In that off season, I our team had success and I had success. I played a lot. I played a good role on a team that honestly we should have won the conference finals. We had, ran into Jamie Benn, who scored 20 goals in 82 regular season NHL games and came back for, playoffs, where he just absolutely lit it up. I think he had 3 game winners in our series, 2 in overtime. He was just on fire that year. But then, followed Guy, which was the right move and where I felt comfortable. Again, like I said, he was a coach that I really gravitated towards. I love the strategy. I love how, meticulous he was about crafting game plan and, psychology, just like dynamics, performance, how to get the most out of athletes. And for me, that was, right in my wheelhouse. So I really, really liked it. So for me, it was natural. I wanted to follow him if I could. And luckily, it was a good match. So I was definitely happy to do that. And it worked out.
And that Tampa team, and that was right before they really started getting going into the, those dynasty teams that they had down there all these years. But you walk into a locker room, Marty St. Louis, Vinny LeCavalier, Steven Stamkos, Hedman, who's been in the league, it feels like for 17,000 years now, was there. Simon Gagne was there. I mean, just loaded with talent.
Yeah, it was a really good squad. I mean, that team lost in the conference finals to Boston. They lost in game 7, 1-0. So, I mean, that was a really, really solid team. So much good talent. We had really, really solid, just a good, solid team. When you walk in the locker room and you see guys like Marty and St. Louis and you see Vinny LeCavalier, and you're like, okay, these are top players. Then obviously the young guys, Stamkos, so I think he scored 60 that year or something crazy. And then Hedman, I think it was his second year in the league, first or second or third. I think it was second, but who's just such a beast, can just skate, for days. It just feels like he still can, but there's so many good players at all positions. You walk in there, you're like, hey, you just find your role, do what you got to do, and kind of go. But the advantage I had was I knew Guy and I knew his system and I knew his structure better than everybody else. So on the day-to-day of that first training camp, like he would often come to me and he would say like, hey, do you guys understand like all the stuff that's going on, what we're telling them, the structure, where to be, da, da, da. And I would just kind of tell him like, yeah, I think there's not too many guys who don't understand like the younger guys who are trying to make the team, and some of the older guys too. But he used me as like, that like to relay information on like, do the guys like, are they buying into it? Are they wanting to do it? Which was, that was helpful for me. And I had a really good camp. I prepared well, and I was coming off a good summer of training. And yeah, I felt good. I was confident and made the team at a camp, which was great. And played some games, got some exposure to the league again, which is fun. And yeah, I enjoyed my time there.
Were you ever paired up with Hedman there or no?
Yeah, I played there a couple times where we got out there together and we played some shifts or period or two. Most of the time I played with Randy Jones or Matt Smaby or Pavel Kubina.
Okay.
Those are majority of the time my partners.
I was trying to think. Hedman, he seems like a very serious guy. Like he seems very nice.
No, he's actually like just like so fun loving, like just a big kid. Just he just has that look on him, but he's a great guy. Just a super, super nice, down to earth guy who's just legendary at hockey.
Maybe it's because he's just 6'6" and huge and and lays the wood and shoots the puck 100 miles an hour. It's just
he's just nothing to do, which is amazing. He's such a great teammate too. Like just a really good teammate.
You bounce between there and Norfolk, and you play for John Cooper down there, who's gone on to, some consider him the best coach in hockey right now. So did you like his style as well?
Yeah, I love Coop. Coop for sure. And I still keep in touch with Coop. He's a great guy. We became good friends in my time there, and just, I loved playing for him. He was just a different type of coach than Guy. He was very sure of the plan working out. He had a lot of confidence, but he was very well prepared, and he was definitely a player's coach. He knew how to press all the right buttons with the players to get them to play at their best. And I think that the players loved playing for him. I think that that's, what we see now. I think it's hard to argue with his level of success. He's won at all levels. And so coming into pro hockey, I think that the guys even were aware of it at that time, that he was coming in like a winner. And so our team was pretty strong that first year. We had a lot of the younger guys who then became the core of Tampa's teams over the next, few years that played. And, we found success, and we had it was a great culture, a great team there. We had great team dynamics. Like, everyone got along. Guys were friends. It was good. It was a fun experience for sure. I was playing there obviously with my best buddy Mike Angelidis again from Albany, and we signed there together in the summertime. I pushed him once I knew I was going to sign there. I was like, hey, because he's like, yeah, Tampa might be interested. I said, please sign there. You need to sign there. I just signed there. You need to sign there right now.
And then, so your second year in Tampa, they traded you to Florida for another former guest of the show, Mike Koska.
Right.
And then you're in Florida for a hot minute there, and the Rangers trade you for your former teammate, Wojtek Wolski. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was an interesting time too. It was fun. I actually became friends with Koska too. Great guys from the Toronto area. I see him. We trained together a little bit in the summertime as well. He obviously went on to have good success there and play a little bit in the NHL as well. So that I'm glad that worked out for them. Obviously, in Norfolk, their team was really, really good. And it was kind of tough, honestly, because all of my really good friends in hockey were playing on that team, and getting traded away from there it was tough. And so, to be honest, getting traded to Florida's organization and going to San Antonio, where it was just different. I didn't, I was just kind of still feeling the weight of like being moved from somewhere that I felt so welcome. And then going into, San Antonio, and it was just a different dynamic. It was good guys there too, but it was just different dynamic. And I probably sabotaged myself from doing better than I could have. Just, being in that mindset. And so I was actually happy to get traded out of there to New York. It was a fresh, start. And I was really, really happy to get to Hartford, and going in there with a better mindset allowed me to do a lot better. I mean, that team was also really, really good. We had a lot of good players on that team. In that one season, obviously I played on 3 teams, but I played with 3 different really, really strong teams, which was really nice actually, because you get to know a lot of good players. You play with a lot of good players, and you're getting to develop your skills. And again, that's really what I was about, was just developing at all times. And so that helped me for sure. And then we got to Hartford, we had guys like Zuccarello and, Marchessault. We had Wade Redden on D. We had Cam Talbot in net. Who else was there? We had Newberry, Andre DeVoe, Pavel Valentenko, obviously Jordan Owens, and then Blake Parlett. We had a lot of guys, a lot of good, solid players. Chad Johnson, another goalie. Our goaltending was fantastic. Our good D was really. Our forwards were excellent. Like, we didn't, have a lot of holes anywhere. Brendan Bell. It was just such a strong team. And so getting there and playing amongst them again, I came in and started, on the power play again, which was great. And that was where I felt most comfortable, and I performed the best at, and just, based on what I was good at. And so, we had good success. And that year, Norfolk, I think they went into the playoffs, like they didn't lose a game in like 31 games or something. And so they swept the first round, and we were the first team to beat them in like 3 months, I think, in the playoffs. So that was kind of cool, getting to play against them. And we had a really hard fought series. We lost in game 6 in either overtime or double overtime. I can't remember which one, but it was a really, really good hard fought series, and emotional too for me, because all my best friends were on that team. And so, it was good to play against them. Obviously they were a really strong team. And then they ended up playing against, they swept the next round against Manchester, and then they played in, the Marlies, Toronto in the finals. They swept them as well. So they didn't lose any more games the whole way. And then I ended up going to watch them and supporting them in the finals when they were here in Toronto. They won the Calder Cup here in Toronto, and I kind of went to, celebrate a little bit with them and just offer my congratulations. Obviously I wasn't part of all the festivities, but just, just kind of like saying, hey, congrats. Cause like a lot of my good friends were on the team, the coaches, it's a good atmosphere. But then my time in Hartford was great and I really enjoyed it. I did well. And so that kind of led me into the following year to re-sign with them, which was lockout year, another lockout there. Yeah.
Right. I think that was lockout, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no Torella training camp then, right?
Oh yeah. It was everything that like, you hear about. It was every bit as tough and probably harder than you kind of anticipate. But I knew that going in, and going back to like what we were talking about before, I was always an effort kind of guy, and I loved fitness. So when I knew I was going to sign with New York and have to do the training camp, my main mission that summer was to get in as good a shape as I possibly can. And then I ended up doing really well at fitness testing and camp. And, it was grueling though. Like it was the first day of camp is absolute misery. So anybody who's done it knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was miserable. But Torts is a fantastic human being, like very, very great. I had the opportunity to like, just interact with him a little bit, just see him in the gym as passing through, talk with him. He came up to me, say, hello, Mike, how are you? Thanks for being here. Nice to have you. Just a good guy. And I know, his reputation, or, he gets painted in a bad light by media, but he's a good-hearted person. He's just old school and just demanding. And the way he does it, he wants to see who's mentally tough, mentally resilient. That way he knows who he can rely on, throughout the course of the season. And I don't disagree, to be honest with you. I think that the way he does it is good. And you find out really quickly who your horses are.
And so Chris Kreider was down there the second year you were there. He was bouncing back and forth actually Torts was bouncing him back and forth because he was giving him a hard time. But going up against him and seeing him as a young guy, like, is he seeing now he's a 50 goal scorer in the NHL? Did you see that then?
Honestly, I didn't know if it would be 50 goal scorer. I think you knew he was going to be an excellent player because the way he skates and the way he could shoot the puck and the way he was so physically, better than, most, he could lift anybody up and just throw them over his shoulder if he wanted to. He could jump out of a pool, like the kind of things that like, special athletes can do. And, going against him in one-on-one drills was not fun, for sure. But he's a great kid. I became really good friends with him that season. He was always hanging out at our condo at our place with my roommate, Kyle Jean. But great guy, really good player. And, I'm happy for him for sure. We stayed in touch a little bit, once I left there. But really happy for his success. I could definitely see it that he was going to be a full-time NHL player. I probably put him as more of a consistent 30 goal scorer, but I'm not surprised. He's not afraid to go in front of the net and, tip a puck or score a goal. So yeah, happy for him and definitely, not surprised. So I think that he's probably, he's probably doing a little better than even he would probably anticipate. But I think that his success is prided on, the fact that he's such a, great athlete.
Yeah, I think that was the summer that he jumped on the pool, right? That was like the whole thing,
Yeah.
like the video and everything. Did the guys give him shit for that or no?
Yeah, we laughed about it, kind of gave him, we poked fun at it, but like obviously in our heads, like, wow, we'd all want to do that.
Pretty impressive, yeah.
Yeah, we all want to do that.
I remember every Ranger fan was posting that, like, how's this kid out playing? He can jump out of a pool like that.
I know, it's crazy. Because I love tennis. I'm a big tennis fan. My roommate was a tennis fan. He's a big tennis fan. So we actually played quite a bit of tennis that year. And you can see his athleticism. And we actually played a lot of basketball after practices too, which was great. And you can see he could just jump, right? Like he just jump, and you could see the level of physicality and the athleticism in him for sure.
Was he dunking?
Oh yeah.
That's impressive. That's pretty good.
No, yeah, he's a beast.
Any other funny stories from Hartford stick out to you from your time there?
I'm trying to think of some good stories. The first year I just got traded there, Sean Avery was still playing there, and obviously there's a lot of just information about what was kind of going on with him and like where he was at in his NHL career and this and that. But he was a quiet guy. He was a nice guy, especially when you got to know him one-on-one. I didn't particularly spend that much time with him, but all the guys, they said he was a nice guy one-on-one. I mean, I had a few interactions with him, but he's a nice guy. He was just in a, it's tough when you're an athlete and you're playing when you're at the top level, and then for whatever reason or not, we all kind of go through it. You aren't as good as where you were before, or there's younger guys and there's just different dynamics, and so it's just different, right? As an athlete, you want to be at the highest level, and when you're not, it's just we all go through those moments. But it was a good sport. To his credit, he came and he worked hard when he was there, and he just had other ambitions too, and he had other things that he wanted to accomplish, and he was just I think people who aren't hockey traditionalists, they see it, or that are hockey traditionalists, they see it as like, oh, he's so different, he must be weird. Well, no, he's just a regular human being who has different interests than you. And so, I think that he just liked different stuff, which was totally fine. Like I had no problems with him. It was funny though when he came in, and like the quote where he said he threw his equipment in the Hudson River, and he came in and he said that to us too. It was funny, and he signed a picture, a big poster to us, and left it in our locker room where we get changed, which was kind of funny. Just typical him, like, just typical him fashion, just doing low key funny stuff. He had funny comments and stuff. So it was fun times. What else? It was probably
who were the pranksters on that team?
Pranksters. We had a guy. Kelsey Tessier.
Yeah. Kelsey. Yeah.
He liked to play some jokes, liked to have a fun time. We got him. Sean Collins was kind of a funny guy. Logan Pyatt, those guys. Newberry and Mike Haley, they had a nice little romance. Those guys were hilarious. They're great guys. Obviously they were aligned because they both had kids at the time, so they spent a lot of time together and their families. So it was funny, but great guys. We had a fun locker room. Millsy was there, JT Miller. He was just a young kid at the time. He was like 18 years old. You could see he was just going to be a stud, kind of like Kreider too, but he was a little bit younger. Miller was. But yeah, we had a good locker room dynamic. We had a lot of fun for sure.
So after that, you jumped overseas after that. You go to Germany first. What was that decision for you to kind of go over there? Is that something you always wanted to do, or what led to that decision?
Yeah, that was an interesting time. So I was getting married that summer, and I actually, the day before free agency was the day I was getting married. The day before free agency, my agent told me I was going to sign. Like Boston wanted to sign me, and they wanted to sign me on a 2-year deal. So I was like, hey, I'm pretty pumped. And so the next day I woke up and my agent texted me, he's like, hey, the deal with Boston is off. They're going to make a trade. And so they ended up trading Sagan to Dallas, and then they got a young prospect back in return. And they said they're going to give him that opportunity, which is, I was upset for sure in that moment, but understandable at the time. I was coming off a good season. So I was like, hey, I'm not worried. I'll figure something out. I went on my, vacation after getting married, honeymoon, and I just kind of shut off to everything. To be honest, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to focus on, I hadn't ever really been on some kind of vacation like that. It was always in that like go mode. So I was like, okay, I just need to just shut off a little bit, and it was great. But when I came back, it was just the market dynamics. They were really shifting, and this is 2013, so it was really kind of on the precipice of when the young athletes were really, really being valued, because the teams were just starting to get enough data to show that the best money spent is going to be on young assets. And so it really started to shift. And I mean, I was 27, so I wasn't old, but I wasn't, a young, prospect at the time. So it just became a little bit harder. And so in that meantime, I had a really, good offer and a team, in Mannheim, Germany. They really wanted me. And, when I was younger, the narrative was more like, you go to Europe when your career's over to kind of play it out. So it's almost like I was afraid of going over there. It wasn't, not that I was afraid of going over there. It was more like, hey, I still want to pursue excellence. I want to play in the NHL. So I wasn't like, not that I wasn't thrilled. I just wasn't like thinking about it at the time. And so after, about a week of deliberation, I talked to my wife, I talked to my family, and my agent was like, hey, like, it's a really good deal and it's a really good spot. I think you should really, really consider it. So I said, sure. And I said, okay, let's go. And, after doing a lot of research and seeing what it was like, I was like, hey, let's make the commitment. Let's go overseas and play hockey. To be honest, when I got there, it was so much better than I anticipated. And the hockey was better, but just the lifestyle, the club was fantastic. We sold out 15,000 every single game. The fan section was elite. It was probably one of the best atmospheres in all of European hockey for sure. And I loved it. And I wish I had a better mindset going into it, but I ended up really, really liking it and falling in love with it. And so it really changed the course of my entire life, not even just as a hockey player, just, in general as a person. And, getting to know that lifestyle, the European lifestyle, is something that my wife and I both really, really like. And so, yeah, it was a great decision.
You went on to play in Sweden, Hungary, and Denmark. What was your favorite stop of the 4?
Well, in Sweden, we had an awesome team, and we ended up winning. I played, so that season I had knee surgery. I was going to go to camp with Detroit, but I ended up having knee surgery right at the day of training camp in end of September. And so I missed that first half of the year. So I couldn't play until basically January. So that's a tough time because, you're dealing with transfer windows and spots already taken up. So I just had to be patient. Ended up signing in Sweden, in the Allsvenskan. That season it was an expansion year. So they have relegation over there in Sweden, and they were looking at bringing not only 2 teams, potentially 4 teams up and playing in the relegation round. to have, potentially 4 new teams instead of just 2 new teams. And so it was really interesting. All those clubs, they were spending a ton of money. There was a lot of really, really good players, a lot of ex-NHL players, a lot of AHL players that were going there. And so, the league was really strong. And so I was like, okay, this seems like a good opportunity. And the team was really good. So when I got there, that experience was amazing. I mean, Swedish hockey is fantastic. The league was potentially, a lot of our teams in that league were probably better than, the lower half of all the SHL's teams in that year, just because of the quality of the imports. And all the Swedish teams were really trying to load up because it was expansion, and there's a big amount of money to be made if you're going to be promoted to the top league. So it was a great experience. I played in Rögle, which is in Ängelholm, Sweden, and they're fantastic, organization. The people around there, the culture was great. Our team was really, really good, and we ended up winning the relegation round. We ended up the promotion round, and we ended up getting promoted to the SHL, the top league in Sweden, and it was a huge party for sure. All the fans were definitely happy. The whole club was, really, really happy. And that was a great opportunity. That was a great place. I mean, Hungary was just interesting because it was a different part of Europe. It felt more Eastern, but it was actually great. I really learned a lot, and I liked my time there because Budapest, it was near Budapest, and it was a really, really, really spectacular city when you see it. Well, still old world. And then in Denmark, my oldest son was born just before we went overseas there. And so he spent essentially the first year of his life over there. And so that was definitely a special place. My wife and I always talk about that place. We really have fond memories of there. That was, in terms of overall life, that was probably our favorite, but all the places were truly amazing. Like Germany changed our mindset forever, for sure.
And then after that, you still play ball hockey now.
Yeah.
I know you play for the Italian national team in ball hockey.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I feel like there needs to be more ball hockey, more people involved in that. I feel
1000%.
like, I feel like here in the Northeast, there's a men's league I played in a couple years ago, but there's not a lot of ball hockey around. But you're growing up, that's what you play though, especially here. And
the sport itself is actually amazing. And I think at the highest levels, those international events, they're really good. Like the quality of the sport is strong. And there's a couple, I think it's Switzerland, Czech Republic, and maybe Slovakia. They have professional league or semi-professional leagues where the players, they get paid to play there during the summertime. And so that's good. I run I guess, tier 1 club here in Toronto. And, I've always had the ambition to try to help that sport out and become more legitimate and change that narrative. I mean, I played it, growing up. It was the first sport I was really exposed to because my dad played when I was a kid. So I would always go on the floor for warm-ups. But and I played with my brother internationally for Team Italy a couple times. Most recently was this past summer in Laval, Quebec. And so, the sport is really good. I think it's definitely growing. What I like about it is, doing development in ice hockey and helping and coaching. And, obviously that's my business. My day-to-day business is player development in minor hockey and junior hockey and pro. When you switch over to a different sport like ball hockey, I really believe there's a lot of opportunity because just kind of like the way soccer is, you just put your shoes on, you need a ball to play, and you can find any open field. Ball hockey, there's not a high cost of entry, right? Like you don't need to learn how to skate to play ball hockey. You just run, you pick up a stick and you shoot the ball, right? Like, yeah, you got to learn how to shoot, but it's not like learning how to skate. It's a lot different. So, there's definitely potential there. I think, there just needs to be growth. And I think it can happen, especially with, the market dynamics kind of going on now. And the cost of everything rising, especially in youth sports, especially in youth hockey, where it's already an expensive sport to play. And now it's getting even more expensive. So I do believe kids will look to alternative, or parents will look to alternatives, and they'll find different things, which I think will naturally push more kids to playing something like that, because it's easier, it's more economical, and it still allows for a lot of fun and development.
Yeah, no, it's a great sport. I love it. I think isn't Pasternak, isn't he a big time ball hockey player too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's he's Czecho? Is he Czech or Slovak?
I forget. I think he's Czech, no?
I think
I
he's
forget.
Czech. Either way,
I know he played he plays in the men's leagues over there, like in the off season.
The sport is good. Like, obviously Mark Giordano is a friend of mine, and he plays. I played with him. We played together for a number of years, and he loves the sport as well. I mean, obviously he doesn't play now because it's just occasionally, but yeah, there's a lot of players that play the sport. I think Huberdeau has plays in Montreal. There's a lot of guys who play in Montreal area. There's a lot of guys who play in Toronto area. Yeah, it's a good sport.
So now your company shifted, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, shifted, yeah.
Shifted. So just tell us a little bit about that, and how people can check you out with that.
So yeah, we're a player development agency essentially. I had started doing, like I said, hockey nerd. I was always into stats and like numbers from when I was a kid. I would get the newspaper and I would look at the standings every day, and I was essentially prognosticate the Leafs schedule. No matter how many games they had left, I would go through it and try to guess and like predict, how many points they'd finish the season with, how many goals for, goals against, based on who they were playing. So I always liked playing with the numbers and trying to figure out like, okay, how many points this guy is going to finish with. And then as we started to learn more about advanced analytics, I was always really interested in that, especially performance analytics. I think the development camps, especially those early years in Colorado, they opened my eyes to that. We trained with Lance Armstrong's team, and at the height of his success, we had Lance Armstrong's team, or like some of his coaches, come and help us in our development camps in Colorado, us young guys. So I was always, really, really intrigued by all that stuff, which kind of pushed me to what I'm doing now. And so when my younger brother was playing, I was always trying to help him. If any, he would send me some clips. I'd say, okay, I'll watch, and I would just tell him, hey, do this, in this situation. And then as my younger cousin started playing, technology finally was kind of catching up. And so I would get him to send me some shifts, and I would, give him a little breakdown. But this is like going back to like 2012, 2013, those days of playing in like Hartford. And it wasn't easy to send, video across the internet. You had to first know what you're doing. Secondly, you had to wait an absurd amount of time for the video to upload to your computer. And then you had to compress it and send it by a zip file. It was just a really, really long process, but we figured it out. And so a couple of his teammates liked it and they wanted to do it. So while I was playing, especially once I started playing overseas in Germany, I was kind of doing some of that stuff. When I was in Germany, we were owned by SAP, which is one of the biggest software platforms in the world. And we got to tour their headquarters, which is in Mannheim, Germany. And I saw some things there, some technological advances that I still haven't seen, in other places now. But at the time, it was just way ahead of its time. And I just got, more intrigued by numbers. I ended up meeting and connecting with a guy who worked at a company called Game Breaker, which has since partnered with Huddle. So I learned how to create a little coding, creating coding buttons on my phone where I could just watch the game and just have a tag button, and it would auto-populate to like a little spreadsheet. So I was kind of doing that in 2013, and I started working for some players back home in the city. And yeah, I started growing it from there while I was still playing overseas. And then when I transitioned out of sport, out of hockey, I just moved to doing like skills and skill development more, and started coaching a little bit. Although coaching wasn't what I was looking for, it just kind of, got handed to me a little bit. And so, yeah, I just started coaching. But really my, thing I really liked was that player development aspect. And so we've built that up, whether that's, hockey IQ, I call it intuition, where, we will watch players game footage and we'll break it down. We'll send them back their reports, or, doing on ice skill development, or fitness. Obviously fitness is a big part of why I had success as a player, because it unlocks a lot of abilities. So yeah, just trying to come at it from all angles. And that's kind of what we do. My brother helps me out with that stuff. So is my wife, trying to become a small little niche academy, in this area. We do a lot of digital, like online work, which is good. It's been a lot of fun for sure.
That's great. That's awesome. And you stay with the game, right? You stay with the game you love, and you keep on doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It keeps me in the game. It's something that I like to do, so it's fun.
All right, couple rapid fire questions before I let you go. Favorite arena you played in?
Obviously the one in St. Paul in Minnesota for my first NHL game is really special. The Shark Tank in San Jose is fantastic. I got to play in the Bell Center in Montreal's home opener that year in Tampa. So that's, unbelievable. Really, really great, cool experience. You just feel the history. What else? Mannheim, Germany was amazing just because the crowd was just so enthused the entire game. Like they had choreographed like little signs, and each person in the whole 5,000 people section, they all had one little part of like a bigger sign, and they would choreograph like when to switch it and this and that, which was really, really cool. I got to play in Maple Leaf Gardens in the World Ball Hockey Championships. This is going back 2013, which is really cool because I grew up going to games at Maple Leaf Gardens. Yeah, if I had to pick one, it's hard to beat your first NHL game for sure, but I think Montreal. I have to go with Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your worst travel story?
Oh, worst travel story. Well, I think it was in Norfolk. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. We were leaving a game in Hartford, actually, and the bus driver, and when he was driving down the ramp, when he was reversing, he hit a corner, a cement block, and he put a hole in the top of our bus right in the corner. And so we didn't think of anything of it at the time. We're like, okay, whatever. We'll figure it out. So we got on the bus after the game. We're driving in the middle of a snowstorm, and it's freezing cold. Okay, it is freezing. So we're driving, and we go down a little bit of a hill. I think we were near. Where is that? Near Danbury, Connecticut. So I don't know what the highway is there. I forget. We were going down a little hill, and we're coming up, and it was heavy snow, and we got stuck in a snowbank. So we couldn't move. And so it was freezing in the back of the bus, and it was like 3 a.m. and we're like, what do we do? So we got out and we started trying to shovel the bus out of the snow so we could move. The bus driver had to shut the bus off so he could conserve gas. We were freezing. They sent another bus. They sent us another bus that got there at like 5 a.m. That bus also got stuck in the snowbank. So we have two buses stuck in the snowbank. We are blocking the entire highway, Cars can't go by. So we're just like, all right, we're just going to go sleep in the bus. So we all went into the buses and we were sleeping collectively on the buses. At like 7 or 7:15 a.m., we got a knock on the door, and it was the state police. And they're like, what are you guys doing? And we're just like, the bus driver like, the guys are sleeping. We can't move. We can't get out. He's like, you're blocking the highway for 10 miles. Like, you need to move this bus like immediately. And so we got out and we just started digging. We figured out a way how to get all our stuff onto the new bus. And, we kind of made our way. But that night of like no sleep, broken sleep, and cold sleep for like 4 hours was interesting, to say the least.
You were driving back to North, like that was the drive back though. That was.
I think we were going to another road game somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know
So,
where.
man, that's a hell of a way to start. That's like a 10-hour drive, probably.
Oh yeah, no, we one time got stuck in somewhere in Pennsylvania. We got stuck in a snowstorm. They closed the highways. We were supposed to be home. We ended up spending, I think it was 2 or 3 extra days in a hotel in the middle of the week when we were supposed to be at home, just because we couldn't drive anywhere.
Were you a prankster?
Not really, kind of. I mean, sometimes. I like to throw water underneath a guy's helmet. That way, when he takes it down, water would hit him. I would try to, maybe move some of the guys' things out of their locker and like put them in random places, or tape their sticks. That was the funniest one, is tape their sticks together on practice days when they're usually one of the last guys on the ice. Just tape their sticks together and just watch them struggle as they're like trying to run out to the ice. Those are funny things. I one time in a game, this is in Norfolk, we had pylons just outside of our dressing room door, and so I put white tape on the pylon, and I wrote the captain of the other team's name on it, and I threw it into their zone for warm up. That didn't go over well with them for sure, but we had a huge rivalry with them, which was fun. At my best, I was definitely like very vocal and agitating to the other teams, and I like to play hard. And I think that coincided with like my best hockey.
Were you a red line hanger out during the warm-ups? Were you hanging out there talking?
If I knew someone in their team, yes. Or I would try to mess with the other team. Like I would try to steal their pucks or lift their sticks or something like that, and just kind of get under their skin. But mostly I just focused on my own warm-up. I always, I was a skill guy, so I was focused on like warming up my hands and warming up, my lower half of the body with some edge work, and then, get some shots and have fun. I tried to bring a lot of energy to warm up. That was kind of my thing, energy, enthusiasm to like the off ice warm up and the on ice warm up. I was always the guy who would do like a full workout for a game and then come screaming into the room. Like, I think like 4 or 5 minutes before we had to be on the ice, I would come sprinting into the locker room, throw on all my stuff, and like jump out there for a warm up. So yeah, that was my thing. I always loved to be, last minute on the ice.
And then when you look back, what's your favorite memory from your career?
Favorite memory. Honestly, like just the day-to-day like work. Honestly, I really, really like the day-to-day work. I love practice days because you could get better. The good, the bad, the ugly, like the hard work where we skated hard, because in that year in Hartford with Torts, the coach with the Rangers, we basically in the AHL, you just do what the NHL team tells you to do. So we would do conditioning skates on Tuesday and Wednesday after practice. And it was miserably hard, but it was, now looking back at it, I would, love to be able to do that stuff now, just do it again. Side note, I'll do it with my teams instead. But yeah, I love that aspect. I actually miss summer training because our summer training group was amazing. Like we had such a great group. I recruited a bunch of the guys that we played with, like Mashinter, my buddy Mike Angelidis, Andre DeVoe, Blake Parlett, um, Jason Wilson. Like we had a bunch of guys, and then we had, other guys coming in and out after that. Ponikarovsky. We had a lot of guys. We had a good little core group that we trained with our trainer Dennis Lindsay, who, his first athlete was Eric Lindros, so he did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
but he's one of the pioneers in this in that field, especially in Toronto. So we had a really good crew, and there's a lot of younger kids, like my brother and his training group after us. So I actually missed those days, and then going on the ice and skating. Our skating coach is Justin Pekka, who skated or he played overseas. He went to Michigan Tech, but yeah, just those days, like hanging out amongst athletes, the friendships, definitely the friendships. Just still keep in touch with and see those guys, often, or as often as I can. And so, yeah, those are the times that I really miss. If I had to do one moment, it would probably be that game in Montreal, or winning the championship in Sweden. I would say that was really a fun moment for sure.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining us and taking the time to jump on. I know you're a very busy guy, so thank you for jumping on with us.
Yeah, kids, they make things a lot busier, as you know. And you too.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us this week. It was great. It was an awesome interview. I've been trying to set up for him for a while now. He was recommended to me by Jordan Owens and a couple other guys that he'd be great to have on. So I cannot thank him enough for taking time out of his very busy schedule. And go check out his Twitter at Mike Vernace. Go check it out. Shifted. All his stuff going on there. So he's got great stuff going on. And hopefully we'll get him back on the program again soon. Maybe do a little video breakdown with him or something like that, which would be awesome. But I can't thank him enough for making the time to come on the show. And that does it for episode 116 of the Broadway Hat Podcast. Please make sure you go and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. And while you do that, please leave us a 5-star review there. Every 5-star review, $1 is donated to Alex's Living Foundation. So please take 10 seconds out of your day, leave a 5-star review, and help an amazing cause fight pediatric cancer. Make sure you go and find us on Spotify and subscribe to the show there. You can find the show on Google Play, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spreaker, anywhere you get your podcast, you can find us there. Make sure you follow us on all social media as well. On Twitter at Broadway Hat Pod. You can find my personal Twitter account at KHallNY. Just posted the new trade article I wrote on bellyupsports.com, so make sure you go check that out, which we talked about earlier in the show. Make sure you follow the show on on Instagram and Facebook at the Broadway Hat Podcast, and make sure you follow the show on YouTube at the Broadway Hat Podcast there for all clips and full-length episodes we'll be posting there as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.